Right. I hope you all can see my screen. And this is what you will see when you log into ClusterControl and you have a couple of clusters that you have created. And in this setup, I have only actually created, one Percona Galera cluster 5.6, a MariaDB Galera cluster 10.1, and then a MariaDB 10.1 replication cluster. So it's a bit of lack of imagination, I suppose, but I could have had a Postgres cluster here as well. I could have had a MongoDB setup as well here, a replica set, for example. List here, we are seeing the main information about the clusters then, and then also the health of each individual node, right? And now, if you already have an existing cluster that you would like to add to this list, you're going to go in to what is called add existing server / cluster. And you can, if it is a Galera cluster or if it's a MySQL server, MongoDB replica set or a Postgres server, you can select that here, and you have to key in the information where the servers are located. For example, if it is a Galera cluster that you would like to do add existing Galera cluster, you must enter the host name to one of the Galera nodes, and also a MySQL user and a password that is allowed to connect from local host on the actual server that you're adding, that you want to add, or the cluster that you want to add. And then also you must set up SSH so that it's working passwordless between the controller and the nodes that you want to add into ClusterControl. And when you're filling out this information and you press add cluster, then we will do a job and sanity check the parameters that you have checked in, that you have submitted, and then if everything is okay, then the software will discover the rest of the Galera nodes and add them in to this to the cluster list here. And then if you, on the other hand, start from fresh, then it is completely blank. This you don't see anything on the cluster list, but you can also then, of course, create a new cluster, a new database cluster here. So in this view here, you have a wizard where you have to type in some user credential or SSH information, and then you have to choose if you would like to install software, yes or no. And the motivation here between this is that you might have provisioned your images or your VMs or whatever it is already with software, with a particular version that you want to use. And then if you select an install software equal no, then we will not, of course, do anything with the software you already installed, else we will install the software. And then you key in the IP addresses here, or host names of the servers that you want to add, and then you give also a root MySQL password here. And then if you also want to create a new repository based on for this installation, so to say, then you can go in here and you can do create repository. If you already have a repository of, for example, in this case, Percona 5.6 that you want to use, you can select that one as well, and it will be and your cluster will be installed from that version. So that is basically how it works. And then when you're keyed in your settings here, you just press deploy. I'm not going to do that now because A, B, and C are not really any valid host names, and I actually don't have any more capacity on the server where I'm running this setup. So I will instead just move into the NDB cluster and MySQL cluster wizard here, just to show you that one. And the same idea here, you have to key in an SSH user, you click next, and then you have to key in the location of where you want to have the management servers part of your NDB cluster and what data there you want to use, and then you press next, and then you can fill in the data nodes that you wish to set up as well. And if you want to add more data nodes, you can just do like this, and then you can press next, and then eventually you get into a section where you have to add, basically as many MySQL servers that you want that are connecting to the data nodes. And then you give a root password, and then you're finally pressing the deploy button here. And the software will be downloaded, and it will be then installed on the nodes that you have defined. And the cluster will be then created, and eventually it will be viewed on the UI. And we will create a particular configuration for this MySQL cluster, and we are based on the server capacity you have on your data nodes. We will look at how many cores you have, how much RAM you have, and also disk. And based on that, we will create a really good and solid MySQL cluster configuration that you can use. And if you pay attention here, we actually have different templates that we are using in this case for when we are installing the MySQL servers. And if you for some reason are not happy with our templates, then also this applies for Galera, for Postgres, for MongoDB, for all the types of clusters that we're supporting. You can actually go in and edit the templates from the command line, right? So we are storing these templates in a folder. It was very hard to get that. I'm not sure what happened here really, but there was a template directory where we store these templates. So you could go in there and make modifications and changes so that the templates are suiting you if you're as I said, unhappy with them. Right. And the concept, whether it is Galera or replication or Postgres or MongoDB, is really much the same. Here I go in now onto a replication cluster. It's a very idle cluster, but in the overview here we are seeing that the total cluster load, we're seeing the status and health of each individual node. So in this setup, well, we like grids a lot, so we use grids. But in these grids, we are showing in the top grid here, and in the second grid here, we are showing two multi-masters actually. So it's 10.16 and 10.17 is a master, but they're also slaves, so they're replicating to each other. And then to the master 10.16, we also have another slave connected to this. And in this case, you can click, for example, on a node if you are unhappy with that it is replicating from a particular master. You can go in and fail it over to use another master, right, instead. And if, for example, the slave would have failed for whatever reason, then you can always rebuild the replication slave. And what we'll do then is to stage the replication slave with data from a master that you actually select, and then it will take a backup of this master and transfer it to the slave and apply it and set up the replication. So the UI is pretty much the same for all of them. And then if we are going back to for example, our Galera cluster here, we have our Galera cluster here. The look and feel, as you can see, is pretty much the same, right? It's showing the different nodes that we have, and in a grid here, complete with the state of each node, what version it is, if there are queues building up, and then we have a main view where we are showing different graphs. And you can also create your own graphs in the dash settings here if you are like to show some particular graphs. And then we have also the possibility to look at, flow control, for example, so and other or DB disk access compared to flow control, for example, as well, just to see what are, if there are any correlation between the flow controls and disk I/O, for example, because, well, queues and flow control, things that you would like to avoid in most typical Galera setups. And then here we have another setup as well. Here we have a little bit more load, so it's a bit more interesting to look at. We also have the normal thing. We have a query monitor. We have performance advisors, and these are the JavaScripts that I was talking about that we're actually running. The interface is a tad hardcore, perhaps, but we are doing disk space prediction here. So currently, for example, 44% of the disk space is used, and we predict in 2 days that 57% of the disk space will be used. And then if the disk space go over a particular threshold, you will get a warning, and if it goes above, I think it is 95%, then you will get, by default, you will get that critical alert. But that is possible to change that as well. We then have other metrics here that you can show. If you are more used to looking at particular counters, and you can set up these counters as well, what you want to monitor and graph. Then we have also the possibility to create backups and set up backup schedules, and also it is possible to upload backups to offline storage at, for example, S3 Glacier.